talking about interesting interviews and talking about interesting people, big up Bambii. Big up Blood Clot Bambii. So I spoke about Bambii before on this particular pod, relating to her not so good interaction that she had when she was playing alongside the Black Madonna, now known as the Blessed Madonna. And they had a bit of a bad interaction, mainly because the Blessed Madonna, aka the Black Madonna, was being a little bit of a turntables hog, CDJ hog, set hog, right? We've all been there, or no, we've all been there as a Bambii. I don't think I've ever hogged the decks, but I remember even one time I was playing at a warehouse rave in like Hackney Wick ages ago, many years, maybe even before the pandemic. And this is just some warehouse rave that friends have organized, and we're DJing there, having a great time. And one of the guys was just like, he would not get off the decks. He refused to leave the decks. Literally, I think he might have ate into like half an hour of our set, or maybe an hour. He was being so obnoxious. Literally, I think he didn't even look up. He was avoiding looking up and shit, and just kept on mixing and playing and playing. And I've never really understood the attitude. I understand the attitude of like refusing to get off the decks if like the club's about to close, right? Because you're feeling the energy, you want to keep on going, the people are still dancing and they're giving you more energy still, blah 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 blah. You may have popped a couple pills and shit, so you're really feeling it. But when a fellow DJ comes, you know, you should do the right thing, the courteous thing, the well-mannered thing, and just let them play. You know what I mean? Especially if you've gone over the time. Anyway, that's where I remember her from. But this is a really heartbreaking story, concerning her recent set that she played at Coachella. Now, I gotta be honest, I didn't know this is a thing. According to what I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I'm gonna react to it now with you guys. But I didn't know that a festival like Coachella would have people playing for exposure. That's allegedly what's kind of going on, and what she's kind of, you know, exposed via her Instagram stories. I've heard of it happening in like this, I won't say the smaller level, but I've heard of it happening to like up and coming DJs. Like one person I spoke to essentially told me, like, because I think I congratulated her on like playing at some really sick lineup or venue somewhere in Amsterdam, and she's like, oh yeah, it's a good look, but it's not paid or anything. When you come up as a DJ, essentially she kind of gave me this insight. You have the opportunity sometimes to play for cool parties. So like, I'm kind of obsessed at the moment with this, you know, this party collective or this rave out there in Berlin called Multisex. That's mostly a house sort of night. There's a possibility, if you ever played at Multisex or you played at Erste Commune, for instance, if you're an up and coming person, because those clubs and those raves have a lot of clout behind them, they're quite well attended and whatever, they might get you into play, but they won't pay you. So they might pay for your flight, they might pay for your accommodation, but because they're getting you under the proviso of like, we're going to do more for your career if you play for us for free than if we pay you. And you would obviously agree because you want to be on that lineup, you want to be playing at that cool club, you want to be around those cool people. So I understand it happening on that level, you know, but I wouldn't expect like a fucking festival like Coachella to be having people, just play for exposure. That sounds fucking nuts. But I also understand the predicament you'd be in as an artist, because Coachella is still a big deal. So what do? Do you like refuse to pay for free and pay for exposure at Coachella? No, although you do know if you play there for free, it could literally change your career, because you never know who's watching via the streams. You never know who's watching right there, IRL. You never know what may happen in a run up to it. You could bump into somebody on your way out from fucking In-N-Out Burger and shit. Loads of things could happen. So it must be such a weird place to be in. But Bambii essentially exposed all of this on her Instagram story. So let's read through the captions or the screenshots. The screenshots were provided by that what's his name? Michaeli, the guy that used to work for Boiler Room back in the day. I think he posted on his social media, so big up him for posting this shit. Let's read through it. Bambii said as follows on her first screenshot. I guess this is supposed to be my oh my god, I played Coachella post. And while it might be cool or strategic, I think I'll just be brutally honest. Under the guise of exposure, a lot of free labor from artists is normalized. I've spent years playing shows around the world on the very premise, and it's sometimes being worth it and sometimes has not. I have to say, in this industry, it's also an ultimatum that disproportionately gets offered more to POC or female artists. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm not too sure how you can prove that, to be honest. I guess you'd have to talk to other people. But I'd be interested if that's true. If majority of people who are non-white and women normally are the ones who get approached for like exposure sets. or if it's just across the board, if you're up and coming, you get, or if you're like not that well known. Because I wouldn't say Bambi's up and coming. She's been established for a while. She's been doing bits for a while. But I guess if your profile isn't as big, or you're not as famous, or you don't have as many followers, maybe they always kind of come to you with exposure first. Because as well, they know gigs are so, few and far between, and everyone's fighting over the same fucking spots. I wonder if that's the reason why. But anyway, let's continue on. I know from the outside playing, Coachella seems like a privilege. However, when you aren't even paid like at all, LOL, and the basic standard isn't met, it really just becomes extrative. That's brutal. I'm shocked. I'm legitimately shocked that a festival of the scale like Coachella would have people playing for exposure. Because in my head, I think maybe not everybody's getting $1,000 of a fee, but I would imagine like a nominal fee of like $100, $500 even, would have to be paid to everyone that's playing. To have people playing at such a prestigious, well-attended, well-sponsored, well-backed festival like Coachella for free is just really, really fucked up. And even if they lost money, I don't even care if they're losing money. Even if they don't make money, even if this is just a complete money sink, it wouldn't matter. Just from optics alone, having people playing for free is just crazy. Especially in this economy, especially in this world that we live in. It's absolutely nuts. But I also understand the predicament, like she said, that if you're an artist, you feel a little bit like you have to do it for the exposure, which is, and then they have you over the fucking barrel. So the other post. Yesterday when I pulled up, the artist before warned me that the sound had been chipping out to dead silence for sometimes minutes at a time, pretty much during every single song that was played, and had been doing this for hours during all the previous artist sets who played before me. Okay, that's when I'm going to get nuts. That's when I'm going to get mad. At my level of playing, right? At my level of DJing, which is essentially playing in pubs and bars for £100, sometimes drinks tokens, sometimes you get paid in drugs, right? For my level of playing, I'm used to going to play in places where the mixer has no knobs, the CDJ pitch slider doesn't work, the Q button on one CDJ or both CDJs doesn't work, so you have to play everything via the play or use the actual DJ fucking function to kind of jog things around. Or maybe there's no monitors, or maybe no, there is a monitor, but that also acts as a speaker for the fucking clubs that you're in. So I'm used to that because of my level that I'm at. But I think if you're a Bambii level DJ, right, which is essentially a professional DJ, she does this for a living, I would assume. I don't think she has a regular 9 to 5. To pull up to a place like Coachella and have those very same issues that I have with equipment, with sound, with lighting and shit, that'll make you question everything. That'll make you question whether or not you made the right decision and the right career choices in life. If you're playing at that level and you're still running into things like having sound issues and shit, sound cutting out, and there's no one to help, because I'd imagine a place like Coachella, whoever is in charge of, sorting out the sound, the tech guys, the whatever, they're probably running around looking after the main stages that are on stream, because those can't go down, right? Those are the ones that are going out to millions, if not billions of people. So they have to kind of be on top of those. So if the sound does go out, something does happen, you have to just figure out yourself as DJs that are playing. Fucking crazy. She continues, the equipment I played on was also completely malfunctioning. It's safe to assume that we had a bigger artist had we had been bigger artists on the main stage, this issue would have been fixed way earlier within the show day. Unfortunately, the music industry, especially in the US, is quite hierarchical, with basic care only being given when you are super established. Though some effort was made after my team and I pushed to the issue, I believe there was a comfort with letting the artists play below industry standards, because we are primarily all seen as up-and-coming female artists. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. So they had to really, really push to get everything fixed. And when it did get fixed, a little bit too late, and already you're kind of been bummed out. You wasted a bunch of time, because there is nothing. I don't think the only stress that matches being stressed out when you're playing and the sound isn't working, you're having tech issues, is maybe having a brain fart and not knowing what to play. That's the only thing that can compare. Like when you're mixing and you don't know what to play next, you're kind of having a brain freeze. That is such a stressful moment, because most of the time people on the dance floor don't even recognize or notice that you're struggling to find a new track or the next track. But the only thing that can come close or maybe surpass that is sound issues or tech issues out of your control. Because sometimes you have basic stuff that you know about, right? In terms of ensuring the cables are plugged in correctly, maybe fiddling around with the gain, figuring around with the outputs, making sure everything's plugged in the same place, RCA, RCA. There's some things that you can kind of fix yourself, right? Maybe moving the fucking monitor away from the decks to kind of help with the feedback, maybe trying to get the grounding cable sorted out. Little things that you could do as a person that actually plays. If the fucking CDJ, one of the foots are a bit wonky, you got a little paper in your pocket, you can kind of fold underneath it to make it solid, whatever. You can do some things. But surely at that level too, the whole reason why you have a rider, the whole reason why you're a professional is also so you can not have that issue come up. So you just come, turn up with just USBs and your headphones and just play. That's how it should be. It should be as little friction as possible. You should be required to like be fixing things or be hailing somebody to fix it on shit like that. So I think she's well within her rights to complain about this, but it is quite sad to see that this still happens no matter what level you're at, especially if you're a POC person and shit. It continues. Bambii says, I know the move would be to just post the picture in front of the giant crowd and feed the illusion of success, but in reality I wasn't being paid. I flew myself out and spent thousands of my own money to invest in an opportunity and essentially was severely misrepresented and embarrassed in front of thousands. Like so many other artists on that bill, it took a lot of hard work to even get to a position to be booked. Music is my entire life, and I believe at bare minimum the least a festival as reputable as Coachella could provide an artist they aren't playing is a working sound system. She is 100% right, 1,000,000% right. That is so heartbreaking. She flew out herself. She got her own accommodation. And they couldn't even have the bare minimum done in terms of having the sound and the visual sorted out. That's crazy. But it also goes to show how the industry actually works, right? The industry, like, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, really. Because like I said again, Coachella's way too big of a festival. They make way too much money. They book way too many high-profile people to have people on the list that don't get paid. But I guess in some respects, it makes sense. Because the bigger the festival, like, now I'm thinking about it, every festival that I've seen with like super well-known DJs playing, and then there's like smaller, not well-known, up-and-coming people playing on the list too, it's safe to assume that the booker or the organizer is spending a lot of their money to book those people that they know that can guarantee tickets and sales and shit and people coming through the door. But then the people who are lower down, smaller font, they're most likely playing for free to fill up the lineup because they can't afford to pay them, essentially. But I just don't think it's acceptable for Coachella to do that. I think for sure, if they can't afford to pay you, that's one thing. But at least cover the travel, you know? At least cover my flights and ground travel, motherfucker. At least put me up accommodation-wise. Like, God almighty. Like, and I bet you any money, pick up Bambii for posting this, I bet you any money they're also tight on the food. I bet you any money they're also tight on the fucking drinks and food. I bet you she probably got comped on some drinks, but she didn't get anything for free. I bet you she had to fucking fight to get a fucking meal or a drink or something. So on top of not paying you, they're also requiring you to travel there by yourself, feed yourself. And I'd assume for a woman, just, you know, moving around is way more difficult, way more expensive, way more labor inducing than a guy. Guys, you just pick up your bag and hey, keep it moving. Girls have to consider way more different things. Maybe she travels with a team. I don't know, but it's different for them. So not having any sense of looking after people is crazy. It's also weird to hear that there's no like person to liaise, you know, someone on the ground floor who can kind of sort out these issues. Maybe one person per stage who just is in charge of like, okay, if the person's got an issue, so that she doesn't have to panic and like move from the decks, she can just signal to somebody and they can do all the running to get this thing sorted. That should be something that should be done. So you know when you play, okay, cool, this is your person, this is fucking Lauren, she's going to be helping you out in terms of everything you need. Please go to her. She has a walkie-talkie. She has access to everything that you need, extra cables, this, that, a drink, bloody blah, 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 whatever it may be. This is your person. But I guess I didn't have that. And then the last slide, Bambii says, I'm really struggle sometimes with saying something in fear of appearing angry or jaded, but responding to this moment with no critique and thank you so much Coachella post just isn't honest. Exactly, and I agree with her. I'm glad she said that. It's also one of the unfortunate things about being black. If you raise your voice, if you share your opinion, if you're brutally honest, you can sometimes be seen as being the angry black woman / black man. So it can be really hard to kind of gauge how you should approach things when you feel like you've been disrespected, when you feel like you've been misrepresented, when you feel like you haven't been looked after in general. It's hard to know if you call it out, will it fuck you up? Will you be just seen as angry and bitter? And will it just hamper your career as well? Because you'd imagine a lot of the, I don't know. I think DJing is just similar to like rave culture. Or no, it's similar to just being a rave on the dance floor. If you want to be a person that consistently gets on guest lists and is always in green rooms, I would assume you just have to be a bit of a lick ass. So it probably works the same way in DJing. If you kind of put up with a lot of shit, if you don't complain, if you're always malleable, if you're always agreeable, if you're always open for this and that, and you don't have a problem with last minute changes, and you can drop everything that you do to meet somebody, to do this, to help somebody out, most likely the DJ is probably going to help you out. It's probably going to be very handy. Even more so, big up Richie Ahmed, even more so if you're able and willing to be the runner for the group. Imagine you're an up-and-coming DJ, but you're friends with other DJs who are a bit more popular. Imagine you are more than happy to fucking do the fucking, the late night afters newsagents run. You're happy to go and get some drinks. You're happy to go pick up some multivitamins. You're probably going to get further in your career. But if you put your foot down, if you draw a line in the sand, if you kind of demand your respect, it might have some adverse, it might have an adverse effect on your career. So it's a weird place to be. It continues. In a small way, it kind of normalizes these unfair exchanges and how these spaces exploit our aspirations of being on these platforms. I'm grateful for what I've been able to do thus far, but I'm also clear. Gonna be deep in reflection about how I'm going to be moving forward, because I care too much about music to be out here lying about how it truly operates. Exactly. And also lying about how it hurts, lying about how it hurts. Because I'm assuming this has happened other times in Bambi's career, unfortunately, or she's been in positions similar, and it just hurts, isn't it? But you have to always put a brave face on it. You have to post that picture outside of the club in front of the fucking fans, act like everything's good, when really it's not good, because you feel like you've been disrespected and you're not being looked after. And it probably hurts even more so when it's your dream, right? A lot of us, myself included, we want to play professionally. You want to be out there in clubs. You want to be out there in festivals and shit. And you finally get to that level where you feel like your career is going somewhere, and it turns out to be a nightmare. Like, the career that you wanted isn't really the career that you get. And you sometimes feel like, am I complaining? Am I not being grateful? Am I kind of spitting in the face of my blessing? But no, in this case, she has no reason to feel like that. She's every right to be upset and up and angry. Number one, like I said, I'm just shocked and surprised that Coachella, a festival of that level, has people playing for the look, but then also doesn't cover ground transport, flights, accommodation, or anything. You have to literally turn up yourself. You get booked, yeah, you get on the fucking lineup list, but you don't get fucking anything out of it except for the exposure. And I'm not even sure if her set got even streamed. That's another thing, by the way. So the exposure is great, but her set didn't even get streamed, I don't even think. So that's even a no. So if you're gonna book me for free for Pay Coachella, cool. And you're not gonna pay my flights or accommodation, that hurts, but cool. But at least fucking stream me on the YouTube channel. I don't think her set was even streamed. That's a par. But she did follow up, and she posted another follow up. Actually, somebody screenshotted. Big up this user here called Next Dimensional. Let's see what she said here via the follow up, a clarification. I wonder if she walked anything back. Hopefully she didn't walk anything back. Hopefully she's still standing on business, but let's see what she had to say regarding this issue. So here's Bambii. She says as follows. I wasn't going to speak on this again, but unfortunately the story has hit the music mags, and as to be expected, some of my words and sentiments are being twisted. I'll never understand why simply being transparent in this industry gets you painted as ungrateful or bashing. I think that happens because, just to answer that question, I think when you complain, people have that reaction, mostly because the people who are saying it want to be you. And they think if they're in the same position, they'll just take whatever's given. But I don't think that happens. I think when you're in a place of like having little, like right now, like I can't remember the last time I got booked to play somewhere. It must have been a couple of years now. It's been a long time. When you're in a place where you haven't been booked in ages, or you're like fighting to get booked, and you see somebody that's getting booked and they're doing well, but they start complaining, it can feel like they're being ungrateful for what they have. But most likely, if you're in the same position as them, you will be complaining too, because these complaints are universal. No, like, I don't think she's complaining about not being paid. I would complain about that. I think she was okay. She agreed to go play Coachella and not be paid. She was fine with that. Her problem was that she wasn't looked after. There was no professionalism. There was no duty of care given to her and the other DJs, because they were quote unquote smaller acts, and it kind of made for a shit experience. And if you care about what you do, if you care about doing a good job, if you care about showing out for your fans, if you care about making a good impression, the whole reason why you took the fucking gig is to fucking potentially get in front of certain people's eyes. And now you have all these sound issues. It's going to make you look bad. It's going to make your product, which is you and how you play, look horrible. So she has every right to complain. But the people that are saying to her she's being ungrateful are people that probably wish that they could be in that same position. But if they were, they would also be complaining. It continues. But to be extra clear, if you're new here, please know that I am not. I am not to be I may not be traditionally quote unquote famous, but for the last decade and some, I've been a full-time artist touring the entire world. All right, go on, Bambii. Let your fucking nuts hang. Organizing large-scale productions in my own city and abroad. Booking other artists, producing music for myself and others, the list goes on. By the way, that's a big flex, by the way. It's one thing to say that you tour around the world performing as a DJ, but saying that you put on productions and shows and you put on other artists and shit and release your own shoot, that's a real flex. Because anybody can DJ, anybody can play around the world. But can you put on your own shows though? Can you put money in other people's pockets? Yeah, you're a boss. It continues. A lot of money I make, I reinvest into my shows, tours, music videos, etc. I've understood as an artist, you are signing up for a constant gamble. So much labor is just about getting your foot in the door. Technical / sound issues are definitely not new experiences for me, but for them to last an entire day at one of the richest festivals in the world in a context where artists are given free labor, I stand on that being unacceptable. Everyone has a lot of opinions, yet those do not know the vulnerability of standing in front of a large crowd trying to communicate your craft. Exactly. By the way, if you've not DJs before, imagine, I'm sure some of you have spoken in front of a crowd or in front of a room. Could you imagine speaking in front of a room with a microphone and it's not working? Do you know how nerve-wracking that feels? When you're speaking in front of a crowd and a mic isn't working, maybe the cable is like broken and it keeps cutting out. Maybe you just hadn't turned it on and you don't know. Something's happening. It can be so nerve-wracking. Immediately you start sweating, you start panicking, you start fucking hyperventilating inside. You know, it goes fucking nuts. So imagine how much stressful it could be when you're on a stage like Coachella and, you know, you're at this amazing fucking festival, this well-attended festival, this well-regarded festival, covered all over the fucking press, and you're in front of all these people, some of them who don't fucking know who you are, because that's how festivals work, right? A bunch of people come to just see other people play, but they're passing by to see who you are, and you want to put on a good show for these people because you care about what you do, you love what you do. It's not a job, it's a fucking calling that you're doing, and then suddenly the gear isn't working. That's going to make you sweat buckets. That's going to put you in a real state of anxiety. So I get why she's saying that. I honestly get that. My only issue here, I think also in this, is that I think these sound issues, tech issues are unacceptable. Why? Because also with the festival, I just thought about this now, they're very they're very tight with time. It's a very kind of like military operation. Like you can't waste any time. If you're late, then whatever time you have left, that's how the time you have left. You can never go overtime. They run a very tight ship. So it's strange that they would allow such tech issues to persist when it could negatively affect the entire roster of people who are playing on that stage. You know what I mean? You would imagine, you'd think that there would be more onus, responsibility to make sure the sound and tech is good, because you have to be so militant with the timings and shit. But you know, I could be wrong. She continues and she says, to the end, I'm sorry that the imagination of most is limited by fame and capitalism, that small artists advocating for basic things seems ungrateful and entitled. It's not. I think naturally, this will end up doing her the world of good. I think most likely fucking Coachella is going to see this and they're going to respond and they're going to make sure that the tech issues are ironed out, especially for this weekend, because there's 2 weekends, right? So hopefully she's playing this weekend. I think she is. But if she isn't, then I'm assuming whoever's going to be playing is going to benefit from her complaining, because they're going to sort out and they're going to iron out and fucking, you know, whatever else there may be when it comes to tech and sound issues. It's just a shame that she had to kind of go through it in the first place, because at that sort of level of a festival, you expect it not to happen. But I guess it's also good for people to know who want to get into the industry what it's actually about. You know what I mean? There's going to come a point where, depending on how ambitious you are, you're probably going to have to figure out in your head how badly you want it and what things you're willing to do and not to do to get there. You know? And I think sometimes a lot of people, myself included, you know, comparison can be the thief of joy. You can be looking at somebody thinking, oh yeah, I want to do that, I want to be there, but you don't know that, you know, they might have played like 5 gigs back to back where they've kind of had to, you know, essentially pay their way to play. And they're just looking for the next one, and they keep paying for the next one, hoping that's going to be the one that's going to make them blow. Um, so maybe playing on your local circuit can seem a little bit small time, but at least you're playing in front of people. At least you maybe put some money in your pocket. At least you get to play out in general, and you're not consistently having to invest because it's already stressful. It's already costs a lot. Just I've put on my raves myself, just putting on events in clubs where everything's already installed and shit. But imagine how much more expensive it must be when you're having to invest in yourself in this way and pay for flights and accommodation and shit. It must be a lot. It must be a lot. It must be super stressful. So the least you can do, the least these people can do, they're booking you for free, is to make sure the sound and the tech is working. But I guess these motherfuckers are like this. But big up Bambi. Appreciate her for sharing what she shared, and hopefully those problems get sorted out. Hopefully those problems get sorted out.